Hello and welcome to this video on project delivery systems, which kind of matches a little bit with the title of the course, but it's building on the previous video on acquisition strategies. So an acquisition strategy would include defining the project delivery system, the procurement methods, and contracting approaches. So we're covering the second part of an acquisition strategy for a construction project. So it's mainly here one learning objective for this video, which is, don't be fooled here, it's a lot of things to learn in this video, but it's mainly contrasting the different available construction project delivery systems in the industry. So like we explained, the way you organize the team, the project team is a project delivery system, and defining the contractual relationship between them. There are different project delivery systems available, but we're covering here the 5 major ones: design, bid, build, construction management at risk, multiple prime contracting, design, build, and integrated project delivery. In this video, we'll cover the first, second, and the fourth delivery methods. Multiple prime contracting and integrated project delivery are not that much widely applicable in the construction industry. Multiple prime contracting because it's not that much efficient, you can say, and it's not recommended by a lot of people in industry. And IPD, it didn't have yet a momentum like design build. So it's very innovative like design build, very promising, but still didn't have that much ground yet as design build. So we'll cover design bid build, CMAR, and design build. So let's first kind of have a very historical quick background of how projects were viewed to be delivered through history. So the first kind of going all the way to around 1800 BC. So Hammurabi from Persia or Iraq region kind of had this code for social and kind of justice and legal system. And part of that system or code was, if you build a building, you're responsible for the safety of those are in this building. It might feel like, very makes sense, right? But remember, that's a lot of years before our time. So they like Hammurabi even defined, like, if this building falls on the owner of the building, the builder of this house will be killed. If the home fell on the son of the owner, the son of the builder will be killed. So it's kind of detailing what will be the consequences of inefficient or faulty designs and buildings. And the next year, Vitruvius, which is kind of one of the early scholars and kind of those who give some thoughts about what would be an architect qualities, and he's the one kind of thought that to be a good architect, you need to be also a good builder. So you need to have the skills and have tried building things that you're designing. Brunelleschi is an Italian architect, and he's really interesting. Is thought as the father of design build. So Brunelleschi came actually from the trade. Like, he was a skilled trade person. He was an artist, but artists in the old days, they go through apprenticeship. They get through training by a master artist. So he was not even an architect, but he got a lot of experience and building experience, that he was the architect of one of the biggest dams, if not the biggest dam in the world, which is Brunelleschi Dam in Florence, Italy. And it's very, very interesting dome. Like, it's really like physics doesn't work there, but he made it work. And that's because he knows how to build things. So he was kind of the father of design builder, who was the original design builder, you can say. And then Alberti is the kind of the one who put the theories behind what like a modern architect, as we understand now, formulation, what's architecture is about. And then we've seen now the rise of professional societies. We're jumping a lot of years here, but in 1800s, like this is where American Society of Mechanical Civil Engineers, all of these were created to maintain the quality of the engineering services. And then Miller Act is the federal act that required bonds, and we covered bonds before, but it's guarantees that projects will be delivered by contractors. So that kind of trying to manage the risk for federal projects, and that structure the federal and public projects in a design bid build kind of mentality for many years. But the private sector kind of figured out, I don't have to comply with that, so they moved into kind of more integrated approach, design build approach. And then you see here the Brooks Act. So the Brooks Act kind of loosened the procurement methods for engineering services, not construction, by allowing public agencies to select architects or engineers based on qualifications, not lowest price. You don't want to hire an architect based on a lowest price and they give you a mediocre kind of cheap design. You want to have innovation in the design, so you pick based on qualifications. And then the establishment of professional construction management was around the 1970s. So that brought a lot of the scientific management principles and theories into the construction arena. And then people are more comfortable now with more integration. So the principles of and delivery system of construction management at risk was gaining more momentum. And then DBIA was established, so Design Build Institute of America. And then the biggest thing here is the Federal Acquisition Reform Act, which allowed federal entities to pick beyond just the hard bidding process and allowed qualification-based or value-based procurement. And then P3, which is the kind of public-private partnership, so allowing private entities to be involved in public projects, building dams and roads and other infrastructure projects. And then DBIA kind of mature enough to publish best practices in 2014. And then over time, with these practices, a lot of states became comfortable going through using design build as a procurement method, or a project delivery method, sorry. And that it became approved in 95% of states as an approved delivery method for public construction projects. So that brings us today that a lot of people now are open mentally to especially in the public area, to use design build or integrated project delivery in some way. So you can see that we started with kind of an integration. Naturally, like you have that design builder, people were coming from the trade, a skilled labor becomes an architect and designs things that they know it can be built. And then we had some period where services were segregated, and then we're now coming back into returning to integrating these services. So when we think about construction project delivery systems, there are a couple of things we have to consider. First of all, that relationship between your ability to influence cost and the cost of the changes you make, how these two are changing over time. So a project will go through conceptual design, detailed design, construction, operation, and maintenance. So early, when you're just sketching ideas on the paper, you have 100% ability to change or influence costs. I can add 10 more floors in the building. I can have an underground garage. I can do whatever I want. It's just a piece of paper, right? So I can have a lot of influence on the project outcome and also cost. With little cost of these changes, it's just a matter of scratching things on a paper. But while you move into the project and putting effort in design and construction, your ability to influence cost goes down, and the cost of any changes you make goes up. So it makes sense that if you are able to try to make all the decisions and get all the commitments from all the people of the project early on, because you have ability to influence costs, rather than bringing people in the middle of construction and they come with changes that you're not able to apply, and if you're able to apply them, they will come with a lot of cost to you. And this is why this idea is this McLeany effort time curve, is that when you're thinking about the traditional project delivery, so the first and the second curve, we covered these before, but the traditional project delivery, which is design, build, will explain these. There's a lot of effort done in the middle of the project life, which is the construction documentation. A lot of effort put into detailing the project, like design, but there's less effort done in really thinking about this design, if it's constructible, trying to innovate in the design early on. But now the integrated project delivery and design build try to bring a lot of people early on, making a lot of effort in planning and designing the project, and then that effort will be less moving forward, but you plan ahead a lot of, for a lot of time, and then the execution takes less effort in this case. So the idea is that shift of mentality and also shift of the effort curve you have. So that's one thing. You need to think about how much impact you have in the cost and how much implications of the changes you make of that impact you have, and the changes over time over the project here. And the need to shift your effort curve as much as you can to be early on, so you have more impact on the outcome of the project. Another thing is liability. So information liability. So the owner hires a designer to provide, so the designer provides two specific implied warranties here, which the owner also provides for whoever builds the project based on the design documents. So first of all, plans and specifications are accurate. So there's no miscalculation in some way. And the other thing is plans and specifications are suitable for the intended purpose. So you're not giving us plans and specifications for building a bridge while you're actually building a dam. So, right, so you need to, whatever you're building for something that was intended to, using drawings that are suitable for this project. Now, if these warranties are not satisfied, then the contractors are entitled for change orders. So you give me plans that doesn't work, this is a change order. This is the cost for the information. So this is the information liability. Spirit doctrine, so in law, like doctrine is kind of a principle now, like really hard principle that people now follow over years. So Spirit is a contractor who was building a project and a shipyard for the Navy, and the design documents provided by the Navy showed that the drainage pipe didn't have any obstacles inside, like they call it the dam, and then the contractor assumed that this pipe will be sufficient to drain any rainfall within the project perimeter. But then the rain came and the pipe didn't actually take all that runoff, and actually that you had a flooded project. So contractor, he said, I didn't know that the pipe will not be sufficient. The owner showed that the pipe diameter is not obstructed by anything, and I followed that. So the owner owes me this amount of money because they provided me incomplete or irrelevant information, and it doesn't match reality. So the question here is, whatever delivery system you pick, who has or who is impacted by the Spirian doctrine? Whatever information, if you are providing any design information, you are liable. So let's cover the first type here, design, build, DBB. It's the traditional way of delivering construction projects in the US and almost other countries, any other country. So design, build. It's a very linear sequential process. So everything starts with the owner defining the project and the planning. And during the planning phase, meaning that they need to plan what the project is. Like, I want to build a hotel. What do I need to have in this hotel? What functions this hotel will serve my organization, the owner organization? and then they hand this to the architect to make the design. The architect will hire some different consultants, and then once all the design is complete, the owner will go through bidding and select the lowest price bid. So typically it's following the procurement method of lowest price. It doesn't have to, but typically that's the idea. Why would you invest all of this time to have this complete design to give to the contractors so they can price it up, right? So once you have the general contractor winning the bid, the GC now can hire subcontractors and trade contractors. That's very linear, right? You start the design, you do the bid, you build it. The architect or engineer, AE here, is typically selected based on qualifications. So that's a typical. You want to pick a qualified architect, not a cheap architect. But then you would pick the contractor based on the lowest price, because now you kind of define the design and you want the one who will be building it in a cost-efficient way. There are two types of contractual relationships here. There's a direct relationship and indirect. Direct are these lines here, so meaning that every line of these is a contract. Indirect, so the owner will ask the GC to listen to the architect and performing the work. Like the architect will inspect the work of the GC and say it's pass, no pass. But there's no direct contract between the architect and GC, but there is an indirect relationship between the architect and the GC. And that's dictated by the owner contracts with the GC and the architect. Now, the direct relationship that the owner has with the architect is called the standard of care relation, and we'll cover that in the construction law primer video. But the standard of care is that there's a standard. The architects and engineer will take care of the owner in providing their services. There is a standard for that. And then the owner has a spearing relation with the GC in the design bid build. The owner takes the design document and give it to the bidders, so he's handing a lot of information, which means that there comes a lot of liability, spearing liability to the owner. So design here is fully complete without input from the GC. So you can see here all of the design is completed, packaged in a bid package, and you get quotes for that. So pause here a little and think about what are the good things and bad things about design bid build. Take a moment, start writing in the paper, and then when we get in the class, we will discuss what you found to be good things and bad things about design bid build. Until we meet, think about, I will share with you my experience here for a hotel I was involved in it. It's construction project. So San Stefano Hotel in Egypt. So I was the contractor consultant, meaning that I was working in a structural firm that was checking the plans that were given to the contractor from the designer. And while we're checking the calculations for the steel structure of that bridge between the two towers here, this is an arch tower here and there's one arch tower behind it connected by this bridge here. When we doing the design was fine, but when we kind of my supervisor told me, can you calculate the weights of the trusses that are used here? And when we calculate the weights, we give these numbers to the contractor. The contractor figured out I cannot build it. It's so heavy, so high above the ground that there is no crane will be able to put this as one big bridge in place. So we had to think about how we can actually revise the design, cut it at some splicing joints, so it can be assembled out there with different cranes. So why did this happen? Why would the designer design this as a big, huge bridge instead of thinking about it the way that the contractor thought about it? This is a story for you. Reflect on it and think about the good things and bad things. This was a traditional design bid build project. The next delivery system here is the CMAR, so Construction Management at Risk. So it's similar in some way to design bid build, but CMAR allows some level of integration. So let's see how this happens. So everything starts with the owner. The owner starts planning the project, defining the requirements for it, and then at the same time almost they hire two things, the two entities here. The GC, but now the GC is called CM at Risk, Construction Management Company at Risk, and then they hire the architect. And there is this dotted line here is more reinforcing that indirect relationship. But here the CMAR is hired to give input to the architect on how things will be built. Like what would be a constructible design. So these two entities are hired. The CMAR is kind of acting as a consultant to the architect and the owner to provide input on how to build things. And the architect will hire the other consultants to complete the design. And then the CMR at some point will hire specialty contractors, major key trade contractors, we call them here specialty contractors, to give more input into the design. So mechanical, electrical, plumbing, these key trade. And at this point, you will have a time to commit to a budget. So what we call here guaranteed maximum price, we'll see that in the payment scheme or the contracting approaches. So now is the time to really put numbers, dollar ticket on this project. And then we go into bidding, but now bidding for what? For subcontractors, trade contractors that are having minor scopes within the project. So you do bidding then. How would you select the CMAR and specialty contractors? They're not going through bid, they're going through qualification-based selection procurement. And then you construct the project. So you can see things are moving now more in parallel, not that much in linear way like design, bid, build. So the main contractor acts first as an agency CM. What does agency CM mean? It's like a consulting construction company. It's not really a contractor, it's consulting in terms of this design constructible or not. And they are selected using qualification-based or value-added-based procurement-based. Agency CM provide this list of services here typically. They provide this leadership and coordination between design and construction parts of the team, making recommendation for improving the design and value engineering and improving the value to the owner at the end. And then finally, preparing and administrating the bidding process for the subcontractors and trade contractors. The major difference between CMAR and DBB, contractor provide pre-construction services during design, so they're more earlier involved than the DBB. They're selected not by hard bids. They usually negotiate the price of the contract with the owner, so using the guaranteed maximum price. We'll learn more about that. And in return, they will have an open book. So whatever costs I have, I will report it to you. And there's more potential now to fast track the schedule. You can do a lot of things now in parallel. And the construction cost is determined a little earlier. Here, you don't have to wait until the design is completely done. Same thing, pause here a little, think about good things and bad things about professional construction manager or CMAR. Next is design build. And the last thing we'll cover here is design build. So design build, here the owner interacts with a single entity. If I forgot here to add double line here, but it's a very important difference here, single entity. So it's a single entity that will interact here with the owner. The owner will have a single contract with an entity that's responsible for design and construction. And here there are many ways to organize that design build entity that kind of includes both the architect and GC. So we'll cover that. But after planning, the owner here can get the architect a little early, or they do that planning exercise with in-house kind of expertise and employees. So they define what are the requirements of the project, and then they bring that design build entity early in the procurement phase, and they take it from there. They design it, they build it, and then they construct it. And here, at some point, before even 100% design complete, you can get a commitment from that design build entity on how much the project will be. So you get a lump sum or a guaranteed maximum price commitment from the design builder. Good things about design build the project delivery here is that it's a single point of responsibility. So there is no much adversary, relationship between the builder and the designer. They're one entity now. It's performance-based contracting, so If you're as an owner, I want to define what the performance of the building facility will be, and I will get that at the end. So I don't have to do a lot of work with the designer in that. I just need to set my requirements and measure it in a specific way. We'll learn more about design build in the future in this course. It's better collaboration environment. Everyone working now under one entity, design builder, and the owner doesn't manage the architect. That's a good thing. I'm not interacting with architect, heavily interacting with architect here. Schedule is now very fast-tracked, and you have early knowledge of how the project will be built during design. And the owner exposure to claims is reduced because, remember, spearing doctrine. So now I'm not responsible. I don't have the liability of the information I provide because I don't provide a lot of information. I provide requirements. The designer and the builder now need to figure this out. The concerns now, the industry concerns about design build, it's a single point of liability. So me as an owner, I have this big entity responsible for design and construction, single point of failure. The cost to submit project proposals. So for that design builder to get the project, they need to spend a lot of money to package a proposal and have some preliminary design to propose to the owner. So that costs money. The architect loses that power and having direct relationship with the owner. That's something architects and engineers sometimes don't like. The exposure of liability to the architect and engineers is now increased. Typically, they're not exposed to liability that much. So in a design builder, they are exposed to more liability now because they are hand in hand with the builder building this building. Sometimes the jurisdictions and laws limit design build for especially public agencies, cities, counties. Another thing is fear of design quality compromise. So there will be deals here between the design builder to be within the budget. We need to pick low quality materials or systems. It requires a lot of mental shift. So people are used to traditional methods. Trying new ways of delivering a project can be an issue. And the last thing is trust between the owner and design builder. Within the design builder organization itself, there's a lot of trust need to be built. It's funny, you have to build trust before you build the actual thing, actual project. So there are multiple options of structuring that design build entity. So there is integrated, there is prime sub relationship, and there is the joint venture. Integrated is that literally you have a company that has both design and construction capabilities. So they have designers, engineers, and they have also construction managers and construction engineers. And then, of course, you have to sub something. You can't do 100% of the scope. So you will have trade subcontractors, you will have consultants, and you have suppliers. And then the prime sub configuration here can be contractor-led, meaning that a contractor now can have the design builder hat and pretend to be a design builder, but then they will sub the design to the designers, and of course they will have trade subs and suppliers. So now I'm a contractor and I will act as a design builder. There is a designer-led design build. So now I'm a designer, I'm a design company, but now I can have the hat of a design builder and hire a sub or have a sub agreement with a GC to be kind of the build side of the design builder. Of course, I have my consultant engineers, and the GC will come there with their trade subs and suppliers. And then there's the developer-led. So developer, like developing companies, like the real estate development. So an owner of a property will have interaction with that development company, and that development company will have some kind of capabilities, integrated design and construction, or they have the basic knowledge and then they sub everything to GC, prime contractors and designers to do the work. So this is the prime sub configuration of design build entities. And the last thing here is joint venture. And joint venture is a way to structure design and build companies to create that entity, that joint venture entity. We'll cover that more in details. So limited liability company, they can create a company from nowhere, and they have stakes in that company, and that company is the one that signs the contracts and build the project. And there's a lot of legal work that's done, so liability is distributed in some way and figured out in some way. But joint venture is creating that special, we call it the special vehicle. It's a legal entity that represents the designer and the builder into one entity, to a single entity. Again, pause here a little. Think about design build. What are the good things and bad things? You can see that this good side here is kind of a little larger than the negative side. So that's a hint of what's going on here. And the last thing also you need to think about at the end of this video is which one of these delivery methods are more risky? And risk here is something subjective, it's relative, right? Are you talking about risky to the owner or risky to the contractor? Because typically you are somewhere like risk, you can think of it as a pie, and who's taking the biggest share of this pie? So the risk is the same risk, it's a pie, and who's taking the biggest slice of it? So think about, we covered design, bid, build, CMAR, and then the design build. Which one is more risky and which one is more risky to who, right? So have a thought about that. We'll discuss this in class. But until then, thanks for watching, and hopefully you had fun with that video. Sorry it's a little long, but other videos I will do my best to make it shorter. Take care of yourself and those around you.